What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Bronx Pinstripe Show. Quick PSA before we get going. For tomorrow's event, if you are coming, tickets are being transferred today, Friday, as you're listening to this. Don't worry, we didn't forget, and you did not get bamboozled. The tickets are real, and we will be transferring them. And the T-shirts will be handed out at the pregame party or at the inside the game, as long as security at Gate 8 still does not give a crap. Neil, you're filling in for Scott. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been a while, but it's always good to fill in when Scott's on vacation or traveling or whatever he's doing.
That is the voice of Neil Keefe, Keefe to the city. I'm sure you guys have seen him complaining about Aaron Boone or Aaron Hicks or somebody on Yankees Twitter. We always do our annual over-unders at the start of the season. I go on your show and we do that. And there's always a fun Aaron Hicks. How many games is he going to play over-under? For some reason, you always take the over, even though you always want him to play the under. I don't really understand it, but this was the last year we're going to be able to do that. Are you a little sad?
I am. I mean, the under hit, so cash those tickets if you had the under because he's not playing baseball, at least not for the Yankees again. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not sad because I think about all the time I wasted watching the guy, writing about him, talking about him, and it's good that it came to an end. So now all of our ire can go to Josh Donaldson when he comes back soon.
So I read something you wrote about Aaron Hicks, and you were like, I'm glad he's gone, but also weird timing for the Yankees.
Yeah, it was weird because this is a move that should have been made at the latest this past offseason, but really in seasons prior. So I was against, if you go back to keepthecity.com, I ripped the extension when it happened back in 2019. And it's been a disaster ever since. So yeah, the timing is weird because in late January, you had Brian Cashman and Aaron Boone tell the media that they believed in him. The player they think he is still in there. He still has all the tools. They gave him 76 at-bats to completely change their mind on that. So you went into this season thinking he's your starting left fielder. He wasn't. He was atrocious. He was horrible. And then the last 20 plate appearances, he actually finally started hitting, and then they let him go. So the whole thing is bizarre and
for
weird.
Greg Allen.
For Greg Allen, right. Yeah. And so the whole situation, I mean, Hicks didn't belong on the team anymore, 20 plate appearances or not. But the fact that you sat by him when he was, having these non-competitive, like giving away 3-pitch at-bats to the point where he was actually driving the ball, getting doubles, hit a home run. And you're thinking, okay, they're going to give him a longer leash. And then they just let him go. The timing was so odd. But it brings me back to the offseason where when they signed Judge and Hal Steinbrenner said, we're not done yet, everyone knew that was going to be a lie, and it was a lie. When they signed Judge, he had to compensate for that money, even though he doesn't actually have to, because he has to stay under the imaginary salary cap that he created in his own head. That money needed to come from somewhere. So it was going to come from left field. It was going to come from the bench. They chose not to upgrade left field. They chose to have the worst bench probably in Major League Baseball. That's where the money to pay Judge came from. So believing in Hicks was always a lie. It's just ridiculous that it got to this point that now they decided, okay, now we only owe him $27 million. That's enough that we can pay him to go away.
Well, I mean, it wasn't necessarily a lie. They said they're not done. They did sign Carlos Rodon. I mean, you might not realize it because he hasn't pitched. So people out there, yeah, Carlos Rodon was signed this offseason, but
yeah,
so
but
that was their next big move. That was their final piece.
That's not great. Not great because
I mean, if he was pitching, it would be fine.
But it doesn't. Carlos Rodon is like, he's a nice signing if he's healthy and pitches. He doesn't make the Yankees like he doesn't make them the best team in baseball. He doesn't make them the New York Yankees like they didn't improve from when you and I and Logan here when we sat in Game 3 last year. That team is this team is that team, if not worse. So they didn't actually improve. Whether or not Rodon's pitching doesn't change the fact that this lineup and offense is atrocious.
Okay, I disagree with you slightly, and it might sound stupid because Carlos Rodon is hurt, and he's always been hurt like throughout his career. So, he's hurt again. Guess what? Surprise. But if he was pitching, this would be a better team. Their pitching staff would be better. Like every single night they're having to get 3, 4, sometimes 5 innings out of their bullpen. I'm assuming if Carlos Rodon was pitching, he'd be better than Clark Schmidt. He wouldn't be suspended like Domingo Germán. Right. I'm assuming he would been better than Johnny Brito.
I agree. He would be better than any of those 3 options. Is he getting a hit off Kyle Gibson on Thursday night? Is he batting third?
No.
No,
No,
so the offense is the same. The
the
Yankees'
offense, yeah.
problem has never been pitching. In this course time, and you can go back to the last time they won the World Series, they never get eliminated in the postseason because of the pitching. It's always the hitting, it's always the offense, whether it's to the Tigers in 11 or the Astros last year, the Astros in 19, whatever series you want to pick. Like the elimination games and the games leading it to, they get shut out. They score 1 run, they score 2 runs. It's always the offense. And this is the same offense.
But we actually got a really good mailbag submission about this at the end of last postseason, and it was basically the fact that like most teams don't score in the postseason. That like even the Astros, we think of like this great offensive team and this team that always scores runs. They're winning games 3-2. And so in the postseason, they were able to get maybe a hit with runners in scoring
Well,
position.
they get lucky though because the roof's open or closed when their guys are up, in Houston.
Right,
So
it's fortunate that the jet stream out to center field. Yeah. But the point overall was like, yeah, there's always going to be maybe a team that has an offensive outburst in the postseason. But if you just look at the overall numbers, teams don't score a lot of runs in the postseason. And so to expect the Yankees to score 6 runs a game in the postseason is probably never going to happen. They're
no,
going
but
to
three.
have to.
Can we get 3?
Okay, that's fine. Sure, fair enough. Fair enough.
Like I get what you're saying. The Astros, when they beat the Yankees in 19, they hit like 190 as a team in that series. But when they did get their hits, they happened to be like the 3-run home run off Chad Green in Game 6, things like that. The walk off for Altuve off Chapman. Yeah, when they do get hits, there happen to be guys on base, and those hits happen to clear the fence. That's the difference usually in the postseason. I get that. No one's averaging 8 runs, 7 runs in the playoffs. But the Yankees, they're not even close to that point. So the lineup is so top heavy that look at Thursday night. They had 6 guys out of 9 that are career below league average hitters in the lineup on the same day that Randy Levine told the media that they cut Aaron Hicks to put the best team on the field. And then you got Willie Calhoun and you've got Oswaldo Cabrera and you've got Jake Bauers. If he's your pinch hitting option, there's a big problem.
I wrote that down. The lineup 5 through 6 last night was just a complete
It's every
black
night
hole.
though.
Calhoun, Volpe, Cabrera, Rortvet, and Greg Allen with Bauers pinch hitting. I don't understand what their obsession is with Jake Bauers. And it's like, I think they've just gotten the memo got to Michael Kay. Hey, every time Jake Bauers steps to the plate, pump this guy up. You have to remind people that we think he's going to be good, because he says it every time he strikes out or just like hits a lazy fly ball to right field. They're like, well, the Yankees believe in Jake Bauers. They believe he can be offensive. So it's like, yeah, I don't know how many more at bats we're going to get from Jake Bauers. I'm assuming whenever Donaldson comes back, he's probably the guy to go. But I also go back to Brian Cashman's postseason press conference last year when he's like talking about how he believes that Josh Donaldson is still going to be the player he used to be. I'm like, why would you believe that at this point?
Right.
Like, it's been a long time since Josh Donaldson has been an impactful offensive player. Was he really good defensively last year? Sure, fine. Like, he can be good defensively, but so could DJ LeMahieu, who's also not hitting right now.
Yeah, and when Donaldson and Stanton come back, the moves are going to be Calhoun's gone, Bauers are gone. Calhoun bats cleanup whenever he plays. Jake Bauers bats leadoff half the week. So you're telling me this guy, he's not good enough to be a Yankee when the team's at full strength. But when he is a Yankee, he's good enough to lead off, or he's good enough to pinch hit. And Willie Calhoun's good enough to bat cleanup, or fifth, I think is like the lowest he goes in the order at this point. And it's really sad and embarrassing for this team to have the payroll they have and the way they've spent it is mind-blowing, really. I don't know how you can have a $300 million payroll and you get 2 guys hurt, and now this is the constructed roster you have.
And that's a conversation I've had with Scott. It's that it's not the amount of spending that fans should be upset about.
Who cares? It's not their money.
No, but it's the distribution of the spending, right, and the spending on players. And then at that point, if you're already spending close to $300 million, don't put a fake cap on yourself, because at that point you just need to win, right? Like the only way spending $285 million or $310 million or $400 million, the only way any of that is worth it is if you win a championship. So just keep spending to patch up any holes that you think you might have to just win a championship, or at least put yourself in the best position to win a championship. It's either that or literally stay below the real cap, which of course they're not going to do. You can't do that when you're spending $38 million on Judge, $36 million on Garrett Cole, $27 million on a guy who probably is not going to pitch this year.
It's not good. It's not good. And you get these people who, last night I throw out some tweets or whatever, and people are like,
I can't believe you're
"Oh,
still on Twitter. You have 2 kids. Why are you still on Twitter?"
well, they go to bed. You're watching the game, and I have no one else to
I
tell
don't.
my issues to. I'll
I'm done
text
with
you.
Twitter.
I guess I'll just text you.
That's what I
But
do. I text Logan and Scott and Ilya, and I text you. I text Frank. I don't fuck Twitter at this point.
But you get people who are like, "Oh, you're complaining about this team. Oh, what about last week? They're 14-6. Their last 20. There's 6 playoff spots. Why are you worried?" Because, like I say, the way I consume the Yankees is I think about the big picture, the long run. What I visualize how this team now is going to play in October because they're going to get to October. 40% of the league gets in the playoffs. Fine. Right now they're set up in a situation where they'd have to go on the road in the wild card, burn their best starters. If they get through, play the Rays, they'll be on like their 4th starter in the first game of that series. It'd be a complete shit show. So it's nice that they beat up on the A's and the Reds. They're not going to see the A's and the Reds in the playoffs. Those teams are horrible, and every team like the Rays or the Blue Jays or Orioles are going to beat up on them as well. It's what they do against the Orioles and the Rays and the Blue Jays that I'm worried about. And if Aaron Judge doesn't come through with that bottom of the 9th home run the other day, they get swept at home by the Orioles. So it's not a good look. And they're, you want to say they're playing better? Fine. They had a nice little cupcake schedule to pad their wins again. But you take away the Reds and the A's, they're a 500 team. And that's not great.
Yeah, last week though we talked about this and I said you play who's on your schedule, and if you're going to beat up on teams, like at least carry the momentum. They did play really well against Toronto in Toronto. I know Toronto has been struggling a lot, but that was a team that was ahead of them in the standings when they went into that series, and they beat them. And I thought the 2 series against Tampa, even though they didn't win those series, I thought they played well against Tampa. And then this series against Baltimore, you're right. They don't get that Judge home run, then they get swept. But also, you don't have Nestor Cortes being sent out there for the 7th inning when it's already the 3rd time through the lineup, and his splits 3rd time through the lineup are just it's eye popping. It's like, I don't understand how Boone and others can't get this through his head. Even Nestor Cortes said, "Yeah, I seem to struggle 3rd time through the lineup." OPS 1st time through the lineup 524, 2nd time 630, 3rd time 1500. 1.548 for Nestor Cortes 3rd time through the batting order. So what are you doing sending him back out there for the 7th inning? You have a big lead. Just go to the bullpen. Give the bullpen a clean inning. You had the day off on Monday. Just give Jimmy Cordero or whoever else a shot. Or fine, Nestor Cortes comes out and he gives up the 3-run home run. Everyone's like, "Oh, short porch, foul pole." Okay, whatever. It's now a 1-run game. You've been using Clay Holmes as a fire extinguisher role, and he's actually been succeeding as that spot. So it's now the 7th inning, and you're trying to preserve a 1-run game, and you're going to go to Jimmy Cordero. I don't care if Jimmy Cordero has been good. No, go to the high leverage guy that you've identified. That's a high leverage spot.
Hey, you're talking to the right person if you want to talk about Aaron Boone. I think I just want consistency. So Aaron Boone would make that decision outside of Garrett Cole, who gets his own special treatment and own special rules we've seen. He will take the starter out against the 3rd time of the order every time. But the one time he chooses not to do it, it comes back to fuck him. But I will say, Cortes, don't give up a 3-run home run to Adam Frazier, who can barely reach the warning track on his best day, and he hits one off the pole. I don't want to hear short porch pole, whatever. It's a home run. It counts. It's 3 runs. It's just, if you're going to always decide to go 3rd time through the order, the starter's out, then do it every time. Don't go on your gut. It's like a blackjack player who, will double down on one hand, and then the next time he sees that hand, not do it. Just stay consistent with your decisions. Just make the same decision every time. Garrett Cole will continue to pitch to his own tune and do whatever he wants, because that's how Boone handles him. And I just want consistency. He is. And Cole clearly runs the team. It's like he's in the dugout talking to everyone. I know they're neighbors. And then now this comes out about how Steinbrenner has weekly meetings with Judge and Cole. It's like those two have all the power and Boone doesn't. And yes, he is afraid of him. But I just want some consistency. So I'm not necessarily against Boone's decision there, but Cortes has to get the guy out. Boone could have gone to the bullpen. It didn't work out either way. If you're going to go to the bullpen there, then don't have, like you said, don't have it be Jimmy Cordero. Michael King, Marinaccio, Clay Holmes, Peralta. These guys have to have 4 days off between outings. When I have to see Nick Ramirez, Albert Abreu, they get the ball every day, it seems like.
But I don't agree with you with the consistency thing when it's like you also have to use how has Nestor Cortez been performing this year? And I just read you the stats.
Right.
Third time through the order, he struggles. And when he gets to a certain, 80 plus pitch count, he struggles. He had post-game quotes from I think last week where he literally talked about that stuff, how he seems to lose command once he gets a little bit deeper into the game. So at this point, you have to treat Nestor Cortez like a five and fly guy. If he gives you 5 innings or he gave you 6 innings of good ball, get him out of that game.
Right. Right.
There's
And
what was the score at that point? Wasn't it
5-1.
It was 5-1 at that point.
Right.
You should cruise to the finish line. And then, even though Aaron Judge got the home run to get them tied on in the first game, you should cruise to that second game and you should have won that series. So as much as you say they should have, they could have been swept, they should have taken 2 out of 3.
Yeah, you can look at it either way. There, Michael King and Paul O'Neill on Thursday were talking about how Cortez, I think he struck out the side the inning before, and how you have to stretch these guys out, or your bullpen will be ruined. And well, that's too bad for the Yankees. This is the team they constructed. You built a team where you have all these elite relievers. You need to lean on them. And I don't care that it's May. These are important games. The goal shouldn't be to get Nestor Cortez X amount of pitches or X amount of innings. The goal should be to win that game. Like you said, they had a chance to do that if they just turned the ball over to Marinaccio or Peralta or King or Holmes or something, and you get the final 9 outs. Didn't work out that way, and it's just another missed opportunity for the Yankees to make up a game on a team they're chasing, and they just wasted it. But like Boone and his players will tell you, there's always tomorrow, and it's not that big of a deal because they'll get them tomorrow.
Well, yeah,
Except they didn't. They got one hit by Kyle Gibson through 6 innings. Just
first leadoff
embarrassed.
Hit, first pitch, single up the middle. You're thinking, okay, Kyle Gibson, they're gonna crush this guy. Nothing.
People are so surprised when that. I'm surprised when the Yankees score. Like, people are surprised when they're getting one hit by a shit pitcher through 5 innings. That's not surprise. I expect that every night. I don't expect them to go out and put up a crooked number in an inning. That's when I'm surprised.
Well, last night's lineup, you can't expect to score, and
But that's the lineup almost every day. Who did they switch out? LeMahieu? That was the only guy missing.
Yeah. I mean, Judge
that's the lineup we get every day is this shit lineup. And everyone's like, oh, the Yankees are banged up. They're getting Giancarlo Stanton back, who was really, really not good before he got hurt. Was his career worst year last year. Okay. They're getting Donaldson back, who had his career worst year last year, too.
So you don't want Giancarlo Stanton back in the lineup?
No, I do, but I'm saying everyone thinks, oh, when Stanton and Donaldson come back, it's 2015 and everything's going to be great because these two guys are awesome. They're not. Yes, they're better than the options now. They're not saving the day. Yes, they're going to do better than Jake Bauers and Willie Calhoun. That's not saying much.
I mean, I'm not saying Josh Donaldson is going to save anything, but you add Stanton to the lineup, and who knows what's going on with DJ LeMahieu. One thing I wanted to talk about was if he's healthy, because he's 3 for his last 26. That bunt situation, him willingly bunting, attempting to bunt, failing, and then bunting on Tuesday, that was super weird. Right. It's like you're the cleanup hitter. You swing the bat in that situation. You want to try and catch them off guard on the first bunt attempt, and it works. Okay, fine, I'll allow it. But once you fail the first bunt attempt, don't try it again.
Right, and I thought that was Aaron Boone decision after, LeMahieu said he did it on his own. Boone said that he was okay with it. So it was clearly a LeMahieu decision, and I thought DJ LeMahieu was a smarter baseball player than that. That's something like Gleyber Torres would do or Nick Swisher would do. That's not something you would expect DJ LeMahieu to do. And yeah, something is obviously wrong because...
Well, what if he's not healthy? Then maybe that's why he's thinking my best opportunity to score this run is with a bunt, because he's looked terrible. And then in that bases loaded situation the next night, he had a terrible at bat. I mean, is it the toe? Wouldn't surprise me, right? Like even into spring training, they're like, well, yeah, we might do surgery on 2 toes. No, we're not going to do surgery on any toes. Right. So you're telling me the Yankees medical staff diagnosed his toe correctly? No, I'm not buying it.
I mean, they purposely moved him to that spot in the order for situations just like that. They took him out of the leadoff spot, right, to come up with guys on, and he decides to bunt. So, yeah, that leads me to believe he's not healthy, and then he sits on Thursday night, so maybe there is something there. And to your point about the injuries, yeah, he had an injury that cost him the end of the season, just like he had an injury the year before that cost him the end of the season, spent all winter rehabbing. They said they weren't going to do surgery. Very skeptical decisions. Obviously, we're not doctors. We're not looking at imaging, but given the history of the Yankees medical staff and diagnosing and handling injuries, it's hard to have any faith in what they're actually doing. I just saw a stat today that they lead the majors in man games lost by like 100. And this is a team that in March, Hal Steinbrenner told Mariners Marakovitz about the injuries. We're doing everything right. We believe we're doing everything right. I don't think you're doing everything right, Hal, because this is 5 years now of losing more than half the team before Memorial Day.
Yeah, and Cashman said that too when he held that reporters meeting in the dugout, where they repeat the same rhetoric over and over again about how they like their process, whatever term Brian Cashman chooses to use in that on that day. But you're absolutely right, and I've said this a million times. 1 year fluke injuries, fine. 2 years of fluke injuries, okay, fine, I'll allow it. You can't tell me 6 straight years these are all fluke injuries. Like, clearly something, either the players you have chosen to put on your roster are not healthy, which Frankie Montas was not healthy, right? Like, so there's clear that's happening, or you are not doing something as effectively as other teams are doing to keep their players healthy and on the field.
Right. And I think it's a combination of all, because the Yankees, whether it's Montas, not healthy, Rodon, never healthy, Josh Donaldson, litany of injuries before he became a Yankee, Giancarlo Stanton hasn't been healthy since his first season with the Yankees, Judge, he had some freak injuries, then he was healthy for a couple of years, LeMahieu, he's mid-30s guy now who played every single day for a decade, going to break down at some point, Rizzo, lingering back problems, whatever, shoulder surgery, eyes hurt. It's all over the place. If pitchers get hurt, that's what they do. But the Yankees have a lot of position players who have been injured their entire careers, and shockingly, they're all landing on the injured list again. It's a mystery.
So, do you think when Josh Donaldson comes back, because it seems like we're approaching that date fairly soon, what do you think is going to happen in the infield?
Well, he's going to play every day. He's going to play every day, and he's going to hit about 185, and you're going to be, told every single day how great he is defensively, and he'll come up with the bases loaded every 5 days and strike out, and then they'll get to the playoffs, hopefully, and he'll look as bad as ever there. And then after the season, they won't re-sign him. They'll say they're moving on. His contract ended, blah, 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 after he collected $51.5 million from them. And next year, the Yankees will have a new third baseman, but it's not going to come this year. They love this guy. They think it's 2015. They think he's the MVP of the Toronto Blue Jays, leading them to the ALCS. That's who they think they still have. I don't care about defense. Grows on trees. You could find great defense anywhere. You can't find a good bat anywhere, and he doesn't even have close to a good bat. After what went on last year, he was career worst in every offensive category. Then had that postseason he had, should have walked away from him. Should have ate the money, just like they're doing with Hicks, because that would have brought goodwill to the fan base. It would have gotten rid of him on this roster. And no, he's just going to come back. He's going to play every day. He's going to play every single day, and he's going to bat fifth. And until Stanton comes back, if he comes back first, Donaldson, he'll probably bat fourth. So you're going to see him in the middle of the lineup until the day his contract ends.
Well, I understand why they didn't get rid of him in the offseason, because there were concerns with DJ's health, and also you didn't know who was going to be playing shortstop at the time. So even though you're right, you could probably find another defensive player to just play good third base defense. They were already paying Donaldson, and they had a good defensive third baseman in him, and who knows what DJ LeMahieu was going to be. And now, ironically, Donaldson's hurt. No surprise there, but I think that's why they didn't get rid of him.
Yeah, and you could sugarcoat and make any Yankees decision sound good, but the root of the issue is the fact that this is the guy they traded for, believed in. If Josh Donaldson was batting eighth at this stage of his career, and every once in a while he ran into one and he hit 15 to 20 home runs and he batted 210, no one would give a shit, because you're getting great defense. But the Yankees have cornered themselves to the point where this guy has to be a middle of the order presence. He has to be the guy he was in Toronto and that 1 year with the Twins. He's not what he should be. The Yankees have a lot of guys who should just be at the bottom third of the order and playing good defense, but instead they have 7 or 6 of the guys in the lineup are that exact person. So at some point, some of those guys have to bat in the middle of the order. Donaldson's one of those guys.
So do you think there's any hope? Do you think there's a solution?
The solution would be, if baseball would implement a time between seasons where players could be signed that are no longer under contract, and the Yankees could go out and spend their vast resources, since they make more money than any team in the sport, and go and buy players. That would be a good idea. because they can't grow their own, so they need to go buy them. Except they let all those good players in off season go somewhere else, and then next year they're going to do the same thing, and it's just going to be on and on and on because they just don't want to use their financial might to fill the gaps and fill the holes that they've created themselves. They've passed on all the good free agents for, yes, they have a couple that they've signed over the last 5 years, but they could have signed a lot more, been in a much better position, and none worse than passing on Bryce Harper, saying he's not a fit for the Yankees because at the time they were going to extend Judge, and they had Stanton, who they don't even let play the outfield, and they had Ellsbury under contract, and they had to extend Hicks, and they had Clint Frazier. Just these moves, just domino effect, a snowball on top of each other to the point now where this roster that's constructed is so bad. It's so bad. It's hard to really look into 5 months from now and see this season ending any differently than last season because it's the same team unless you say Carlos Rodon comes back and pitches well. Okay, they're a little better pitching. Pitching wise, they're better. Offensively, they're the same.
Well, they were clearly they didn't think the true team last year was the second half of the season team. They thought even if it wasn't as good as the first half of the season team, it was a hybrid of the two. I think that was probably a fair estimate. They weren't a 700 baseball team. They weren't also a 500 baseball team. They were somewhere in the middle. And so that's what this team should be, somewhere in the middle.
And after 2021, when they were the odds-on favorite to win the East, win the AL, win the World Series, they finished 5th in the AL. They finished 3rd in their own division. Their postseason lasted the top of the first inning in Boston. They said, that team this year that struggled, that was 500 on 4th of July, that's not the real Yankees. You're going to see this team will be better next year. But then next year, we got last year. And last year, it becomes this year. And they just keep misevaluating. 2 years ago, they told us that having an all right-handed heavy lineup didn't matter. But then at the deadline, when they were 500, they had to go out and get Rizzo and Gallo. And then when Gallo didn't work out, they got Benintendi. And then when Benintendi got hurt, they didn't re-sign him. And they got Bader for Montgomery. And all of these moves stem back from poor decisions in really the 2017 to 19 range that are now, they got to pay the bill now for the bad choices they made 4 and 5 years ago.
All right. Well, I want to talk about Garrett Cole. So obviously disappointing start, letdown start on Tuesday, even though the Yankees won that game. He threw 5 innings, 6 hits, gave up 2 home runs. He was throwing a Higgy with Trevino on the IL. And so I was looking into some numbers here. His season this year with Trevino, 62 and 2/3 innings, a 2.01 ERA, 0.6 home runs allowed per 9 innings. And then that was the first start he threw to Higgy, and it was not great. Last year, we know he transferred from Higgy over to Trevino about a third of the way through the season. With Higgy last year in 10 starts, he had a 5.33 ERA. And with Trevino, he had a 2.82 ERA in 146 innings thrown to Trevino last year. We looked this up, and do you remember why Higgy caught 4 consecutive starts from July 17th through August 3rd last year for Garrett Cole? Because that was after, I don't know the answer. Was Trevino dealing with something? That was right around the All-Star game, too, and I know Trevino was an All-Star.
I would have to look this up, but I do remember, I want to say Rob Brantley was on the team for a little last year, and that makes me think that was maybe around that same time. I could be wrong, but I do remember that. That was during the time when they were scoring 1 run a game, and it was a Judge solo home run. This was going on for 3 weeks at one point.
Yeah. What's up, Logan?
I'm pretty sure Trevino was healthy, and I feel like I remember Boone saying something along the lines of I just want to get Higgy back there with him, and it was a thing.
That sounds like a Boone thing.
And
in the 4 starts, Cole had a 6 ERA in 24 innings. So for whatever reason, as talented as Garrett Cole is, obviously, I just cannot figure out why these changes mess with him so much. And I'm not saying the only reason he struggled against the Orioles, who do have a good offense, were because Higgy was catching him and not Jose Trevino. But it's just time after time, whether it's a big start against Tampa, a big start against Baltimore, big start against Boston, Billy Crystal taking 10 extra minutes to throw the first pitch, something not being absolutely to Garrett Cole's liking as the reason why he struggles in a game. When you we all know he's capable of shutting Baltimore out for 7 innings and giving up 4 hits and 1 run. Like, we all know he's capable of that.
Right. So to answer the first part about Trevino playing, there's a faction of the roster that Boone has favorites. Higashioka is clearly one of them. He chose him over Sanchez, ran Sanchez out of the organization. Higgy became the starter. And if Ben Rortvedt doesn't get hurt last spring training, they don't make the trade to get Trevino. And the tandem is Higashioka and Rortvedt last season. Higashioka is in there. If he caught Cole last summer, like you mentioned, and he had a good start, he goes back to Higashioka the next time, not just because he could have 20 bad starts with Higashioka. If he has one, he will get another opportunity. We saw this last week. Albert Abreu was probably as close as he's been to getting axed from the Yankees, and he goes out and he has that awesome inning before Ryan Weber comes in against the Blue Jays when Boone was just playing roulette in a game in Toronto. Now Abreu, he's saved. He will get like endless rope, endless chances until he needs like 10 bad appearances, and then he'll be gone again. So that's what makes me think that Higashioka last summer had those 4 starts in a row, because he probably had one good one, and then Boone was like, I love Higgy, I got to get him back in there, gave him another one, and just kept doing it. That's what he does. For Cole, the issue with him, I don't know why he doesn't pitch well against the teams we need him to pitch well against and doesn't, and why he's good with this guy and this guy. But he like you said, he's always looking for an excuse. The other day, he's flexing his thumb, and then after the game, he's saying, oh, there's nothing wrong with my thumb. What has happened with the Yankees in the last couple starts of Cole is what happened to Herman. He got checked for his hands. He got suspended. Schmidt gets checked. Cole's was post sticky stuff was awful. Then all of a sudden, Cole was back, really oddly. Now all of a sudden, the Yankees are like the poster boy for cheating from the mound, and now Cole stinks again. Like, maybe they were like, hey,
it was
dude,
one
like,
bad
cool
start.
it.
No, hold on. It was one bad. Well, he's had 2 bad starts this year. Cole has the one in Tampa where he blew the 6-0 lead, and then this one against Baltimore. Otherwise, he's been very, very good.
Yeah, but what has happened since that Tampa start? That's when, like, mid-April was when Herman got checked for the first time. That start against Tampa was the first weekend in May.
First weekend
right?
in May. Yep.
Then Herman gets suspended. The Colts' first start since the suspension is the one against the Orioles, where he can't get out of the first inning. He gets 2 outs and 5 pitches.
No.
Then ends
Cole,
up with
didn't Cole pitch against Toronto? Wasn't he the next day after Herman, or 2 days after Herman?
Yeah, he was 7 shutout.
He gave up. He had a lot of base runners, but like he pitched.
Yeah,
well
he did
against...
pitch. He pitched again. Yeah, he had 9 guys on base in Toronto.
It wasn't a great. It was okay. I'm not going to say it was a dominant start, but against what should be a good lineup on the road in Toronto, like that's a good start.
Right, but he's also 5 innings against Tampa, 5 innings against Tampa, 9 guys on base against Toronto, 5 innings, 5 runs against. He's not giving them length. He's not putting guys away. The strikeout numbers aren't there. The last few games, he had 2 Ks, 6, 4, 6. This is a guy
the walks have increased. The walks have increased.
The Ks have decreased. I'm not saying he's doing anything, but I mean, this is the guy. Remember when they asked him about, have you ever used stuff? He was like, I don't know how to answer that question. It's not out of the question. It's not out of the question that something's going on. But I mean,
we all know, according to Alek Manoah, he's the biggest cheater in baseball history.
He is. Alek Manoah should worry about staying in the league at this point because, his future's not looking so bright anymore.
That's just karma, just biting that fatso in the ass.
Right. But yeah, Cole, I mean, yeah, sometimes he's good, sometimes he's bad. He's not the guy you think where every time he gets the ball, he's going to go out there and be dominant. I thought, the first few starts of the season, you're like, okay, this is it. This is his Cy Young season. This is when he, carries the load, and maybe it'll turn back into that, but it's been a really bad May for him.
Well, so Logan, as our resident Garrett Cole stan, what do you have to say for yourself? Because as you know, I was on Garrett Cole's side this year. I was so impressed with how he's started the season, carried the rotation with all the injuries. He was like mentoring Johnny Brito, even though Johnny Brito wasn't helping. Johnny Brito still sucked, but he was attempting to mentor him. And that start against Baltimore was a huge letdown, and I can't get over that six run blown lead in Tampa.
Yeah, I mean, it's not good, obviously. Like, I can't say it's good. But if this is going to be his bad, as opposed to what his bad was last year, we can take that. That's what I would say. Because when he's good, he's good. Like, we've all been in agreement on he could go out there, he could dominate a lineup on any given day, and he could dominate for stretches at a time. if his you know, I have it right here. I mean, his May is like a full ERA, which isn't good, but he's got the two blow up starts, and he's got 3 good starts.
Yeah, but it's
Not great starts.
his ERA could be 2 this month. It's the fact that the 2 bad games came against Tampa and Baltimore, which is just such a huge letdown.
Yes, but also, so if you look at, he's pitched twice against Tampa, Toronto, Baltimore, and Cleveland this month. So that's, in theory, 5 playoff teams.
Yeah.
So, Cleveland, he was 6 innings, 2 runs.
Cleveland can't
8
hit.
strikeouts. Cleveland can't hit. He had the blown lead against Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
He went the next game against Tampa. He went 5 innings, 2 runs, which is not a great start, but it's should be a winnable game, which it was. They won that game. I think that was like the comeback game, or something. Then he went 6 innings against 6 shutout against Toronto in Toronto, which he couldn't do last year. Couldn't.
Toronto owned him.
Get out of
Toronto owned him last year.
And then he had the shitty start against Baltimore the other night. I mean, would you be shocked? He's pitching next against the Padres on Sunday. He could go out and pitch 7 shutout innings, and then his May saved.
Sure. But to Neil's point, are the Yankees going to be facing the Padres to get through the American League? No.
Right.
That Baltimore start, that's a huge letdown. You sweep Cincinnati. You get an off day. You haven't had an off day in a while, and you've got Baltimore who you're chasing coming into town. You need to dominate that night, and he didn't. That's
Garrett Cole loses big games. I don't know. Maybe
I know.
Maybe you don't recognize this yet, but that's kind of what he does.
I know that, and it sucks that he does that because I want him so badly to be the CC Sabathia type of ace, or the Roger Clemens type of ace, or whatever big game pitcher you can name. That when it's Baltimore coming in and you're chasing Baltimore in the standings, you're going to get 6-7 great innings from him.
Right, and this May, he's got 27 innings, 26 Ks. So less than a K per inning. His FIP's over 5. His ERA is 4.67. The walks are up. 6 home runs in 26 innings. I mean, that was always going to come back. Like, he wasn't just not going to give up home runs anymore because he's a fly ball pitcher. But it's certainly come back in full force. Listen, I want to like Garrett Cole. Like, he genuinely cares. Like, he's basically the de facto manager of the Yankees. He goes out of his way to, speak to everyone on the team. He seems like the leader outside of Judge on this team. You could just tell, he really just cares. He really just loves pitching. He wants to win. He wants to win in New York. And so, I can't fault him for that. It's not like he's Carlos Rodon, who seems to find a reason to not pitch. But yeah, he just has to be better. Like, you can't not beat Baltimore, and he's never been able to pitch well against Boston. And he has these issues with Tampa. He can't get Jose Siri out. He couldn't get G-Man Choi out when he was there. He just has these problems with these guys who are barely in the majors, and they own him.
There's always going to be that random player that owns you. Remember, Enrique Wilson owned Pedro Martinez.
Right. No, that is true, and I don't know. He just needs to be better against the team they need to beat. Be better against the AL East. And that's what we want you to do. That's all everyone's asking.
Exactly. It's just, I understand you're going to have bad starts. I understand you can't pitch every single night 7 shutout innings. Right. But you need to be more consistent against the AL East teams that you're chasing. You can't, most of the time, have mediocre to bad starts against them, which it just seems to be the case. And maybe this is just I'm building up the bad starts in my mind, and then we'll look at the numbers, and overall they're going to be pretty good. That might be the case. But there's been... His 2 bad starts this year have been in 2 crushing situations when they could have taken 2 out of 3 in Tampa, and you could have gotten off on the right foot against Baltimore this week. So
right, and I think the blown 6-run lead against Tampa, the Yankees kind of erased that the next week when McClanahan blew a 6-run lead at Yankee Stadium. And then the Baltimore game, Judge the first game, they come back, and then the next night the Orioles have their big comeback. But they just keep negating their big wins with equally bad losses. What
if Cole, instead of pitching 5 innings on Tuesday, pitches 6 or 7 innings? Maybe the bullpen availability on Wednesday night is different, and Michael King can come in to that spot instead of Jimmy Cordero, and you don't lose that game, right? So there's a domino effect there. Even though the Yankees won on Tuesday, it was a factor in them losing on Wednesday.
Yes, of course. And especially with this team where the bullpen budget and the nonsense bullshit about this guy has to have so many days off and this guy can throw this many pitches. Does that really,
you're still bothered by that though?
Yes, I am bothered because Until this team tells me that they have scientific evidence that they can prevent pitching injuries, it's gonna bother me. It's what, look at every pitcher. It started with, you want to say, like at the beginning of the Girardi era, when they were like, okay, Joe Torre ruined all these relievers. We're not going to let this happen.
Scott Proctor.
That was the beginning of this because Jabba had the rules. What happened to Jabba? He needed Tommy John surgery. What happened to Phil Hughes eventually? He had to have a rib removed. Jonathan Loaizaga is always hurt. Yeah, he not with the Yankees when he left. He had that thoracic whatever syndrome. But you have all of these guys over time, whether it's Severino. All they tried to do was protect this kid for 7 years. He has more injuries than everybody. Loaizaga, always hurt. Trevino's now hurt, even though he wasn't always a Yankee. Efros, Chad Green, Tommy John surgery. Kahnle needed Tommy John surgery when he was in. This bullpen budget thing. You want to know how you don't get hurt? Don't pitch. Don't play baseball.
But the bullpen budget isn't just about keeping guys healthy. It's also about keeping them effective. And if there's one thing you have to admit, they've had an effective bullpen every year under Brian Cashman. He's always able to build a bullpen. He struggles in every other area of the team to build a complete roster. But for whatever reason, he can find bullpen arms.
Yeah, he can build the bullpen, but then they don't utilize it right. They build it, and then they're there was a time last week where Wandy Peralta threw 4 pitches and then 7 on back-to-back days, and they're like, Wandy, you're not pitching for a couple days. The guy threw 11 pitches in a week.
But he got up twice, and you got his arm ready to go into a game. That's just as much stress on your arm as if you threw 25 pitches in a game.
No, I don't agree with that. I don't agree. You're right. They know how to build the bullpen. They don't know how to implement it or utilize it correctly. These games, they do this all the time where they'll sit a guy. Someone will be made unavailable in a game. They need that guy. And then for 4 days, they won't need that guy. And then they'll throw him in a game to be like, oh, we just need to get him work. No, he needed to get work when he needed to do his job, not when he was sitting there because you made him unavailable for no reason. They did this in the playoffs last year. Remember when Clay Holmes, he's like, I was ready. And Boone was like, he's unavailable. He's like, he told me I was available. This stuff, people always say, oh, you can't manage this team for 162 games as you do in October. We know as a fact, Aaron Boone manages the same exact way in October as he does in the regular season, and that's the biggest problem. So when I look ahead and I think, how is this going to affect the team in October? He does the same shit. He made Clay Holmes unavailable in the ALDS with the season on the line.
And they punted game 1 of the ALCS.
Right, they're like, Clark Schmidt, you go. We just tied it up. Go Clark Schmidt against Verlander. You go out there. They do the same stuff. Andrew, They do the same stuff.
No,
and they brought Schmidt into extra. Remember, they had him pitch when the Guardians walked him off in Game 3. Clark Schmidt was on the mound after they let Clark Schmidt get walked off. Whatever in Game 2. It's always the same stuff that goes on in the regular season is going on in the playoffs. That's the biggest fear. So when you say the budget doesn't matter, it does matter. It does matter.
I guess. To a certain extent, you're right, but I look at the budget as more about making sure guys are effective. They don't like to pitch them on 3 consecutive days. Fine, I'm okay with that for the regular season. But you are absolutely right. There's certain uses, like I said, the use on not using Clay Holmes instead of Jimmy Cordero on Wednesday, or if Michael King hasn't pitched in 3 days, he's just going to get him in tonight's game, no matter what the score or the situation is infuriating.
Right, and the stress on these guys would be a lot less if they were given clean innings to work with. But every time these guys come in, it's because Boone's
times.
The guy
he tries to steal outs.
Yeah, he tries to get that one last out, and it's a leadoff double. And now Michael King has to come in and throw high stress pitches instead of having a 2-run lead with no one on. He's got a 2-run lead with the tying run at the plate, and he's got to get 3 outs. That happens nightly with this guy. And it's been going on for years. This isn't something new. He has not progressed. He has not evolved as a manager. You could even make the case he's gotten worse, and this is year 6 now of watching these same things.
I thought he was a better manager in 2018 than he is now, which is shocking because he was not a good manager in 2018. Tactical in-game decisions I'm talking about. Well, and then it's the 18
ALDS against the Red Sox was the worst tactical decision making in the history of baseball.
Didn't he try to get him to 4 batters?
First he doesn't. Luis Severino doesn't know what time Game 3 starts. Then
I was at that game. That was one of the most miserable games
I've
ever been at.
Severino's getting 115 mile an hour line drives are the only outs he's getting. 3rd inning, Yankees down 3-0. Let Severino load the bases with no outs, needing strikeouts. He goes to Lance Lynn. I think it was Brock Holt, first pitch, double down the line to clear the bases. Then in Game 4, the next day, He lets CC Sabathia go through the Red Sox lineup with the team facing elimination an entire second time from 1 to 9 because he liked his matchup, he said, against Jackie Bradley hitting ninth. Then, if you remember, he sat Andujar that game. He benched McCutchen for Hicks to play with a bad hamstring, put Gardner back in the lineup. The ninth, it was just that those
you
two
have
nights
an
were so
amazing
bad.
ability to recall things from so long ago that bother you.
Because it's almost I remember watching the Derek Jeter documentary last summer, and he was like, they asked him about the losses, and he was like, you remember the losses more than you remember the wins. That's true. Like I know I could tell you a lot of things about the wins, but it's those things. It's bad decisions that really bother me. There's not a day outside of opening day this year. There's not a day you can go back and say Aaron Boone did something, whether it was put this guy in this place in the lineup, make this bullpen decision, not pull this guy. Every single day, every day he does something.
What was opening day
unbelievable. He didn't have to do anything because he had Garrett Cole turn it over to the elite relievers. That's like, unless the Yankees can out-hit their manager, which they rarely can do because the lineup's so bad, that's the only way they're ever going to win. They're never going to win in the postseason, needing this guy to make 4 innings worth of tactical decisions every night. Like every single night in the 5th inning on, he has to push the right button. Like, I don't know how they can ever imagine winning the World Series with him calling the shots.
Well, the good news is he gets thrown out every other night now. So.
Yeah, and like everyone, everyone praises him for that. It's like,
yeah, that's a
cool,
little.
You're so cool for getting thrown out, man.
Yeah, no, it started with the Savages rant from what was that 2019?
Yeah,
where it's like, oh, everyone thinks it's cool, and it's like
they were such savages in the box that they hit 150 in the ALCS.
But like when the other night in Toronto where he's, jawing with Schneider and the Blue Jays dugout, like I enjoyed that. That was fun because you're giving it back to the Blue Jays and you're complaining about, like, they're bitching about where your base coaches are positioned. You do the same back to them. Fine. But the constant complaining about the strike zone is getting really exhausting. Do umpires suck? Yeah. Umpires suck. This is not new news. It's like every single time.
After the game, they're like, "Are you for robot umpires?" Like, no. It's like, then shut the fuck up, because if you're complaining every night about their calls, then you have to be for robot umpires.
Exactly. And I pulled an article. The New York Post wrote it. Luis Severino apparently hated the automatic strike zone when he was rehabbing. He's like, it's way too small. Ryan Weber's also been quoted as saying, like, yeah, it's much like we can't pitch with this. You have, maybe it needs to be adjusted. I don't know enough about it, but like to your point, Boone, you complain every single night about the umpires. Constantly, you're yelling at the umpires, and you're getting thrown out now, like seemingly once a series for arguing balls and strikes. So the only way to actually fix that is to do automatic strike zone.
Right.
The umpires are human; they're going to make mistakes. This has been happening in baseball for 100+ years. Umpires are imperfect.
Right, and he loves getting out there and complaining and getting people cheering. That he lives for that. That's like his moment. Like when he has to get his hands on a game.
Good news is it fired the Yankees offense up last night.
It did. They went off. They scored 7 runs right after he did that, and they went on to win.
Well, I
game.
think they did get 2 hits after that.
They did put a guy on, and then Oswaldo Cabrera hit into a double play faster than you could blink your eyes, because he's just not a Major League Baseball player.
All right, so what are you thinking for San Diego? I know you're going to try and come to the event, and you got to get babysitter. What's going on?
Yeah, we'll try to be there. I don't know. I feel like the Bronx Pinstripes event. So you go back to last year, we were at Game 3, right, against the Astros.
Yeah, that wasn't really an official event. That was just a bunch of us.
Then the previous one was Game 3 against the Astros, 19, when Brett Gardner was batting third in the first inning against Garrett Cole. That was good. But I guess then. But then there was an event. I went to that Twin Series, but that was an event. So
no, but we had an event in the Twin Series. The next day, we had 400 people in right field.
Oh, right.
Didi.
That's true. The Grand Slam. Yes, I was at that one. Okay, so
that was fun. That's why I got the towel here.
I remember the losses more than the good times. That's true. I was at that game.
We've had more wins at events than losses by far.
Now, I will say this about the Padres. I mean, they're top of the order. They've got Tatis, Cronenworth, Soto, Bogarts, Machado, who's hurt. They've been so bad. And from a wagering perspective,
their pitching hasn't their pitching been terrible?
Yeah, it's been horrible. Snell has like a 5 ERA, like a 1.5 whip.
Musgrove, I was surprised how bad Musgrove is.
Oh, well, here's the thing. Joey Musgrove, you think on Friday night he's not going out 7 shutout innings. Do you know the Yankees?
Randy Vasquez is going to match Joe Musgrove pitch for pitch.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he won't load the bases, and Bogarts, who's like 2 for his last 100, won't hit a bomb like he always does against the Yankees into the visitors bullpen. But yeah, the Padres have been atrocious. Like, they have the same record almost as the Nationals, who they barely were able to get a series win against the last few days. So I fully expect them for the Yankees to fix the Padres season this weekend. I mean, is Matt Carpenter not hitting a 3-run home run sometime this weekend?
Isn't Matt Carpenter hitting
face?
Isn't Carpenter hitting like 120?
Yeah, but
he had a couple home runs early in the season, and Yankee fans were like, "How could we not re-sign this guy?" It's like, he caught lightning in a bottle for a little while with the Yankees. Was it fun? Yes, it was a lot of fun last year to watch Matt Carpenter. He's not hitting well, right?
Am I wrong? He's not hitting well, but he's
not hitting well. But
outside of Soto and Machado, their whole team isn't hitting well. But that doesn't. The Yankees fix seasons, and ex-Yankees against the Yankees play like Mickey Mantle, every single one of them. So whether it's somebody who barely on the team like Tyro Estrada or Steve Pearce or Eduardo Nunez, Matt Carpenter this weekend is going to have a weekend. They're going to fix the Padres. They're going to fix them. The Dodgers should be worried that the Padres are going to Yankee Stadium because the Dodgers lead will start to dwindle after this weekend. And if I just saw the stat,
they didn't fix the Blue Jays though. Hold on, Yankees.
The Blue Jays are bad. The Blue Jays are like
the Blue Jays shouldn't be bad.
But what did they say? What did Vlad say? Like after 2021, I think he was like that was the preview. Next year is the movie, and then they lost in the playoffs.
He's also said they love playing the Yankees. It's easy to play the Yankees when they went below 500 against the Yankees.
Right. I mean, it's easy for Vlad to hit against Garrett Cole, but aside from that, the team, they're not that good. Like, yeah, they should be good. They have Springer and Bichette and
Vlad. Lot of talent.
They have talent, but their starters. I mean, Manoah sucks. Barrios sucks. Kikuchi sucks. Like, Gossman is like their best starter, and the Yankees beat up on him recently. So their pitching is not that good. And then in the bullpen, Jordan Romano's awesome, but they always set him up with Yimi Garcia, who is like Tom Gordon 2.0, can't get anybody out. The Blue Jays are just like overrated.
Remember Kyle Farnsworth and his rec specs?
Oh yeah, he was great. They when they got him, they were like they thought they found the bridge to Mariano, only for him to have like a 450 ERA. But then
who do you think of the? So a lot of younger Yankees fans, Logan. I don't know if you remember the
Logan wasn't even born when Kyle Farnsworth was on the Yankees.
Between I want to say like 2002 to 3 to like 2007. The Yankees' inability to bridge the gap to Mariano was like, it was amazing how many relievers they went through, how many expensive relievers they signed to try and bridge the gap to Mariano, and then they would come in and they would fail. Kyle Farnsworth sticks out in my mind, like you said.
Steve Karsay, but he got hurt.
Scott Proctor was good, but Joe Torre used him literally every day.
They tried Scott Proctor.
Paul Quantrill.
They tried Quantrill, they tried Proctor, they tried Steve Karsay, they tried Tom Gordon, they tried Ron Vallone. They had Tyler Clippard, but they traded him for Jonathan Albaladejo, which they tried him. That didn't. For some reason, I can't believe that one didn't work out. They tried
had Java for 2 months before he had bugs and rules ruin his life.
Right, and then you remember in 2009. They made Phil Hughes. Remember how good Hughes was?
Yes.
In the playoffs, he wasn't good in the playoffs, but in the regular season, he like stabilized the bullpen. Who was partially the reason they saved the season.
Who was the lefty they traded for?
Damaso Marte. He was. Ryan Howard probably still has nightmares about that guy coming in. Phil Hughes going to the bullpen in 2009 was one of the turnarounds of their season. Everyone talks about, when they were in Atlanta and Cashman held the team meeting and all that. That's all bullshit. Like the decisions they made after that, where Phil Hughes going to the bullpen and not being a 5 ERA guy in the rotation and stuff like that, that saved the season. And
it's amazing to look back at that lineup and realize they had Robinson Cano hitting like 8th.
Right. Everybody in that lineup had like, even 06 was even crazier. Cano batted 9th. He hit like 343. Posada was batting 8th. He had a 900 OPS.
Yeah, but don't you remember in 06 when Gary Sheffield came back, Joe Torre stuck him at first base in the postseason, and he couldn't field first base, and it cost them the second game against Detroit?
Yeah, I was at game 1 of that series, and when you left, the whole all River Avs or the dugout, Billy's, everyone chanting sweeps because they destroyed Nate Robertson.
They scored like 9
Jeter
runs.
was 5 for 5. It was there was no reason to ever that team should have won the World Series. I know we always think, oh, they're the Yankees, they should win. That team should have won the World Series because the Cardinals won like 82 games and they won it.
Okay. What was the Yankees pitching staff in 2006?
Right, I'm saying they should have, but they're pitching like that was going to be my next part. The pitching from, you want to say 04 when Pettit left and Clemens left, and they tried to fill that with El Duque and John Lieber and Kevin Brown. The pitching and Vasquez from 04 to 08, the pitching was atrocious. Many missed opportunities there to get back to the World Series. But yeah, that team was their lineup was ridiculous. They had Jeter, Giambi, A-Rod, Abreu, Sheffield, Matsui, Posada, Cano. Like it was just silly. It was silly. Johnny Damon.
So I'm looking at their pitching in 2006. Chim-Ming Wong was their number
Randy
one.
Johnson,
he won 19 games.
Wright,
Randy Johnson
Pavano.
was terrible. Johnson had a 5 ERA. Mike Messina was actually much better than I remember. 3.5.
Except he blew game 2 against the Tigers in the afternoon game. He ruined that series.
That's what I said. But don't you remember why he blew it? There was a ground ball to first base that literally even Jason Giambi picks, and Gary Sheffield could not field the ground ball.
But that's also Mike Messina.
It turned into a triple.
For I think it was lost every big game for that. He's like, he had the game against Oakland in 01 where he pitched well and the Jeter play at the plate. He pitched well out of the bullpen in Game 7 of 03, which in hindsight I wish the Yankees just lost that series in 03. But Messina, Logan's laughing. It's true. If the Yankees lose that series to the Red Sox, then the Marlins probably beat the Red Sox, okay? Because the Marlins, if anyone goes back and looks at the 03 Marlins roster, was just out of control, and no one knew it at the time because their whole team was like 24 years old and younger. But the Red Sox probably lose to the Marlins, right? George Steinbrenner will lose his shit, go nuts that offseason. But instead, the Yankees win because Aaron Boone has to hit the knuckleball out. Yankees lose in the World Series. Red Sox go. They trade for Schilling. They have the best rotation in baseball. And then we all know what happens in 04. If the Yankees lose that 03 LCS, I don't think the Red Sox win that World Series. And the 04 Yankees and the rest going forward to today's time is much different.
So I
should have lost.
In the offseason, we did a Brian Cashman history episode, and he traded
that must
away.
Have been fun.
He traded away Mike Lowell.
Mike Lowell. We don't need this guy.
So the domino effect of that trade is just insane because he traded away Mike Lowell for 3 no-name pitchers that all were busts because they had Scott Brocious. And then Scott Brocious retires in 2001, and they have to go get Robin Ventura, which then they don't have a third baseman. The next year, they got to trade for Aaron Boone, and then he blows out his knee, and they got to get Alex Rodriguez. So it's like you just don't make that dumb trade for giving away Mike Lowell, and you have your third baseman, and maybe none of that happens. The Marlins aren't as good. Maybe you don't have to deal with Aaron Boone's not our manager right now because he's never a Yankee, so he can never hit that home run.
Yeah. Guy hit a home run. He gets
Mike Lowell is then never a Red Sox in like 2007 or whenever.
Wins the World Series MVP for them. Hits like 500 against the Yankees for 3 years. Yeah, and then that era for Cashman, people will look back and say, they got David Justice. He helped them win the World Series. They got Roger Clemens. It's like anybody would have made the Roger Clemens deal. But you look at all the other deals, like you just mentioned with Mike Lowell, they traded Ted Lilly away for Jeff Weaver. That Jeff Weaver trade was the start of Brian Cashman chasing young controllable starters. He's been chasing him for 20 years and he's never found one yet. For 20 years, he's never found one. And it all started with him. It all started with the Jeff Weaver deal. That was a disaster because he's in the bullpen in Game 4 of the World Series, and Torrey, back then it was like you only go to your closer when you have the lead, so they let Weaver pitch, and
then he did it the next year when
they lose.
Joe Torre did it the next year when in Game 7 against the Red Sox he brings in what's his name, Vasquez.
But he did it earlier in that series in Game 5 when the game needed to be saved at that moment, and he went to Gordon before Rivera, and Ortiz hits the home run, and I'm glad managers have gotten smarter in the sense that like the middle of the lineup up in the 6th inning is way more important than 7, 8, 9 in the 9th inning. I'm glad they've gotten smarter in that sense. Not completely. They're not all the way there. But they're getting there. And I think that really changed in the 16 playoffs when Terry Francona started using Andrew Miller, like how everyone wanted every big reliever to be used. And now since then, everyone's kind of followed that.
Even you can go back to Kansas City winning the World Series because they had like 3 guys in that bullpen that were just filthy lights out in their playoff run.
Right. Yeah, you could even say that year before there. But then, the Yankees, they I remember Torrey in the 2011 ALDS. He went to Luis Ayala in games 1 and 2. 2011. Remember they had that weird rain out game 1. It was like they played 1 inning, Sabathia Verlander, and it was 1-1, and then they started the game in the 2nd inning the next night, and
You're
they put
Girardi. You're saying
Girardi. What did I say?
Yeah. Torrey.
Oh, sorry. Yes, Girardi.
I was like, wait, was he managing LA at that
point? No. Sorry, I misspoke. But yeah, they had that weird series. And in game 1, he went to Luis Ayala. And in game 2, he went to Luis Ayala. And David Robertson, who was their best reliever at the time, hadn't pitched yet, but he already used Luis Ayala twice. And he did that in game 1 of the 2009 World Series where they couldn't score against Lee, but he went to like Brian Bruni or someone awful in the 9th inning. And then the Yankees like kind of came back, but they let the game get out of hand even more because he didn't like in the playoffs. You should only use your relievers unless it's like 12-0, but that's a lesson learned for another time for them.
It's amazing. You found a way to complain about 2009.
No, I'm not complaining. I'm saying the precedent kind of started there for what you see in 11 kind of started a couple years before where it's like, oh, we'll use the 25th, 26th.
Do you have like a
roster.
notepad? Do you have like a notepad of all this stuff? Like,
no, I just remember it. But yeah, so the lesson is use your elite relievers, not Lance Lynn with the bases loaded and nobody out in the playoffs. And, better things will happen for you. Like the Yankees the other night, in the first game of the series, Boone did the right thing. Like they were losing, but he still went to the elite guys and gave them a chance to come back and win with the Judge home run. He doesn't do that enough. And that was a good job by him.
But the only reason they did that is because Monday was off.
Right. No, yeah. So, and then like he had that opportunity on Thursday to do the same thing. 1-run game, hold it at 1. But he brings in Holmes after there's already 2 guys on, and then he gives off the ball off the wall. If he gets the clean inning, that doesn't happen. The Yankees do end up scoring in the 9th to tie the game, but we'll never know because we had to see Nick Ramirez pitch before anyone else.
Okay. That's going to wrap up the show. Always good chatting with you, Neil. I hope to see you tomorrow, bright and early.
I know. Yeah, what time are you getting there?
Probably 10:30 or 11. That's what I'm saying. Hopefully make it there. Handing out T-shirts.
Yeah. See Joe Musgrove do his thing against Randy Vasquez. Yeah. I'm going to try to make it. So
no, tomorrow we're seeing Severino.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. Randy Vasquez is on Friday night against Joe Musgrove.
Yeah.
Sorry. Mixing up my days here. That off day on Monday really threw me off because then I keep thinking when we talk about the Yankees, everything's like one day off. But yeah, I'll try to make it and then hopefully see you tomorrow.
All right, Neil, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks.